Have you ever had a project risk where fixing it felt like it just created a brand new problem? You solve one issue and suddenly your backup system is slowing everything down. Or worse, you apply every safeguard that you have, but there's still a chance something slips through the crack. Well, that's not bad project management. That is just secondary and residual risk at work. In this video, I'm going to show you how to spot them early, plan for them like a professional, and even turn them into opportunities for smarter leadership. So whether you're studying for the PMI RMP or managing risks on projects right now, this is a topic you're going to want to pay attention to. And for those that are new here, I'm Russ Parker, project manager, project risk manager, and also a retired U.S. Marine of 20 years managing tasks and combating risks. So let's jump into this first part of this video where I'm going to define residual and secondary risks for you. So first up, we have residual risk. This is what remains after you respond to a risk. Think about the holidays whenever you have Thanksgiving, right? You have a bunch of leftovers left over. That is residual food, residual risk. You had a risk, you responded, but then you only reduced it. So it didn't eliminate completely. And what's left is what we call residual risk. Next, we have secondary risk. This is brand new risk. This is created by your response. So you got to think here, what is new? You had a risk, you responded. Now with that response, you have something new that you have to deal with that wasn't there before. That is secondary risk. And although both of these are super annoying, we all freaking hate them, they are the nature of working with risks, which are uncertain events or conditions that if they occur, will have a positive or a negative effect on our project objectives. Uncertainty means residual and secondary risks can happen. The key here is understanding the difference between the two. Residual equals the same risk, but smaller, while secondary equals a different risk created by your response to start off with. So a great analogy that was given to me once is you have a headache. That is your risk. We all know, I don't know about you all, but I hate getting headaches. Having brain surgery at one point in my life results in a lot of headaches. So what do? I take medication. That is my risk response. I have to respond to the risk by taking medication. But my headache only reduces. It doesn't go away completely. That's residual. What remains is a residual headache. But let's say I take it on an empty stomach. Now I have an upset stomach. That's a secondary risk that came about from my response of taking the medication on an empty stomach. I now have a new problem of I have an upset stomach. So reduced headache equals residual. Upset stomach equals secondary risk. So hopefully you're able to see the difference between these two areas. Now you might be asking, how do you actually spot these when you're actually running a project? Well, to spot residual risks, all you gotta ask is this the same risk as before, but smaller? Did the probability and impact decrease, but not disappear? If yes, it's residual. And for secondary risks, all you gotta do is this completely new? Did it only appear because of my response? Would it exist if I hadn't responded this way? If the answer to the last one is no, then it's probably secondary. And critical for you as a practitioner of project management and project risk management is that both of these have to go in your register. They both need to be actively managed with appropriate responses. You need to take them both through the entire process just like you would any other risk, even with that residual risk, because there might be something you missed when you went through the first time. Or obviously you need to change your response to get rid of that thing altogether. So don't make the common mistake of only tracking the residual risks based off the original risk register, or just ignoring your secondary risks because you created them in a response strategy anyways. Now, for those taking the RMP, you might be wondering, how is this even tested? Well, on the exam, you might get a direct question, something that says, after implementing a risk response, some risk remains. Easy. The answer is residual risk. Keywords you're looking for are remains, left over, after your response. Another way is through that whole scenario-based area where it's going to say something like, you mitigated a schedule risk by adding different resources. Your schedule risk dropped from 60% to 20%, but additional resources created coordination and budget challenges. What does the risk manager need to be concerned with? Well, when we think about this, and if we looked at the answers like A, the 20% residual risk. B, the new risk created needs to be documented. C, having a discussion with the stakeholders on coordination with new resources. Or D, escalating to the sponsor for additional funds to cover new resources. Well, obviously the answer here is going to be B. 20% is from the original risk, only reduced overall. That is residual risks. So new risks are added to the project, which equals secondary risks that need to be documented by the risk manager. So the trap here is PMI is going to include answers like reduce the version of the original risk for secondary, but reduced equals residual. Pay attention to these key words in the questions while taking your exams. Beyond the exam, understanding this helps you manage projects more effectively. First, it helps with proper documentation. Both types of these need to be documented in your risk register. They need owners and response plans associated. Also, it helps with response effectiveness. You need to assess if your response strategies are actually effective overall. A response might reduce an original risk, but it's going to create a worse or secondary risk in the process. Understanding both of these is going to help you evaluate the net benefit overall. It's also going to help with better planning, because when you're planning risk responses actively and you ask how much residual risk will remain if we respond in this way, or what secondary risks might happen if we respond in this way. This leads to better conversations and better response selection overall. And it also helps with stakeholder communication. Stakeholders need to understand both of these terms, and you need to be able to explain it to them because they need to understand just how effective what we're doing in our process can be. And they also need to understand the risks associated to when we execute a response that is not clear. Clear terminology is going to help prevent confusion later on when you're talking to your stakeholders. Remember, residual risks equal what remains. Secondary equals what's new. What did we create in the process? Same versus new. And if you're managing projects, start actively identifying both types when you implement your risk responses. It's going to improve your risk management effectiveness. And if you're studying for that PMI RMP exam and you want a comprehensive exam prep taught live virtually, check out my exam prep course using the link down in the description. I'll also pin it down in the comments. So whether you're taking the exam or managing risks in the field, master this distinction and you will be more effective overall. And if you want to learn more about another fun topic I love talking about, check out this video right here where I go over the difference between good and bad risks and how they impact your project. Thank you all. I'm Russ Parker, the Bearded PM, out.